Whispers in the Shadows. In the heart of the quaint town of Everwood, nestled among ancient oaks and mossy stones, lived a little girl named Emily. With bright eyes and a heart full of wonder, Emily was known for her vivid imagination. Her closest companion was an imaginary friend she named Whisper. Whisper, as Emily described him, was a tall, shadowy figure with long, gnarled fingers and eyes that gleamed like twin silver moons. She spoke of him often, recounting their fantastical adventures in hushed, excited tones. Emily's parents, Sarah and Michael, saw nothing amiss in her imaginary friend. In fact, they found her tales endearing. They believed Whisper was simply a product of her fertile imagination, a way for their only child to stave off loneliness. But as Emily's 6th birthday approached, a subtle change occurred. Emily began to spend more time with Whisper, often sitting alone in her dimly lit room, locked in whispered conversations. Her once bright eyes grew distant, as if some unseen weight bore down upon her. One evening, as Emily's parents passed by her room, they overheard fragments of her conversation with Whisper. Concerned, they paused outside her door to listen. "Emily, you must let me in," Whisper's voice murmured, silky and persuasive. "I promise it will be wonderful. You'll never feel lonely again." Tears welled in Emily's eyes as she responded. "But you said I have to let you in completely, Whisper. I'm scared." Sarah and Michael exchanged worried glances. It sounded as though Whisper was trying to convince Emily to do something that filled their hearts with dread. Days turned into weeks, and Emily's behavior grew increasingly erratic. She withdrew from her friends, ignored her toys, and refused to play outside. When questioned, she would simply mutter about how Whisper was her only true friend. One afternoon, Sarah decided to confront the situation. She entered Emily's room, determined to understand the depths of her daughter's obsession. What she found sent a chill down her spine. The walls of Emily's room were adorned with drawings, but they were not the cheerful, innocent creations of a child. Instead, they depicted nightmarish scenes. Emily and Whisper standing over a dark abyss, grotesque figures lurking in the shadows, and Emily with hollow eyes, her hand reaching out to a sinister, outstretched shadow. Fear gnawed at Sarah's heart as she realized that Whisper had taken a sinister form in Emily's drawings. She needed answers, and fast. Late one night, after Emily had fallen into an uneasy sleep, Sarah scoured the internet for any information on imaginary friends turned malevolent. Her search led her to an obscure website filled with stories of children who had faced similar predicaments. The common thread in these tales was a sinister entity called a shadow seeker. These malevolent creatures posed as imaginary friends, slowly gaining control over their young victims and ultimately possessing them. Panicked but determined, Sarah continued her research. She found a story about a woman who had successfully banished a shadow seeker by conducting a purification ritual. Armed with newfound knowledge, she set out to save her daughter. The next day, Sarah consulted a local psychic, Madame Evelyn, whose reputation for dealing with the paranormal was well known in Everwood. She arrived at the Thompsons' home with a solemn expression. Emily's room felt heavy with an oppressive presence as Madame Evelyn entered. She immediately sensed the malevolent energy that clung to the space. With Emily and Michael looking on, she closed her eyes and began to chant incantations in a language neither of them understood. As Madame Evelyn chanted, a low, chilling voice responded, filling the room with an eerie resonance. It was Whisper, the malevolent entity that had taken hold of Emily. "Leave this place," Madame Evelyn commanded, her voice unwavering. "You have no power here." But Whisper resisted, his voice growing louder and more sinister. "Emily is mine, body and soul. She belongs to me." Undeterred, Madame Evelyn continued her incantations, her words growing stronger and more forceful. Shadows writhed and swirled, but the room seemed to brighten as if it were pushing back against the darkness. Then, with a blinding flash, a ghastly figure materialized in the center of the room. It was Whisper, his long, gnarled fingers reaching out menacingly. Emily gasped and took a step back. Madame Evelyn stood her ground, her eyes locked onto the malevolent entity. With one final, powerful incantation, she banished Whisper with a burst of brilliant light that left Emily's room bathed in warmth and serenity. Gasping for breath, Emily collapsed into her mother's arms, her eyes once again filled with the innocence of childhood. She no longer spoke of Whisper, and the disturbing drawings that had covered her walls began to vanish one by one, as if erased by an unseen hand.